Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hit It Podcast. Super special guest here with me today, the world trick record holder, Jake Abelson. Jake, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Super happy to be here and happy to take part.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to cut right to the chase. This has been an incredible 2024 year, and we're still in June. I mean, late June, but we're still in June. There's a whole bunch of skiing left ahead of us. And I know you're gearing up at the end of the season, which we're going to touch on with the Junior World Championship. But I wanted to talk about that record, and I wanted to talk about how you opened up the year. From what I can see, going back to mid-April, you had a personal best right around 12,000 points. And then from there, I mean, it's just been an incredible run. And here's some of those stats. You went to Swiss Pro, and you tricked 12,230 points, which was a new U.S. national record. And then the following weekend, you went to Ski Fluid. You bumped that score up by 500 points, tricking 12,720 points. And then just recently, your pending world record became the world record with 12,970 points. Talk us through that progression this year.
I'd love to. So at the beginning of the season, I started training earlier this year, all the way in January. It was cold because I was going to ski in Moomba, and which went well. And that meant I was ready for the season much earlier than I'm used to. And that left a lot of time for training to work on new runs, getting faster. So basically, like at Swiss, I did a run that had 11 tricks in time, but it was my normal run, but I added wake 5 back at the end. So only an extra 310 points on top of the score I had before, and with the same toe pass. But at Fluid, I did a wake 7 front to front, which is valued at 800 points, and plus the run, which I did, plus the toe pass, which was 5,050 points with the toe slide and my normal toe pass. It came out to 12,720, which is 800 points higher than my previous PB, or 750 points higher than my previous PB of 11,970.
Wow. So, and if this serves me correctly, that Fluid ski run where you set the first world record this year of 12,720 points, it was 24 years ago where Corey Picos, the last American to hold that record, had the world record. And now you've brought that world record back to the USA. What does that mean to you?
I think it's so cool. I don't ski for scores. I ski to go have fun on the water and to play on my ski. But I was super happy to go out there and put everything I practiced out on under the pressure in the tournament.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch tricking right now, because we were looking at the progression of the world record for so many years, from Nicolas Laforcier all the way to Pato Font. And then all of a sudden this year, boom, boom, you break it twice. And the span, from what we can tell, is like 17, 18 years that it took to capture that first part of that world record from Nicolas to Pato. And then you have two world records in the same year. And then at a Masters qualifier, so an LCQ, it looked like you almost had a run that you were going to be the first person ever to trick over 13,000 points. Had a couple of tricks went your way at the end of the pass. Tell us about that.
So at the Masters LCQ, I got an extra toe line front in at the end of my toe pass, as well as made my larger hand pass to score 12,970. And in the next round, I tried a little slightly bigger run, and I just was a little slow, fell. But my goal eventually is to trick 13K. It would be a dream of mine to trick that much, but I'm just going to keep training and try and do that. But basically, just by adding a couple more tricks or doing a ski line 7, doing a toe slide, it's pretty close.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's so interesting. Like, those are on two different ends of the spectrum. One is a 7, and the other one's a toe slide. That would make up, the tricks needed to go over 13,000 points. I don't know. And this is just a question I have no idea the answer to. But like, when you're writing out your runs and you know what you can do, maybe you don't have tricks that you put into a run right now because they're too risky. But where do you think is there a limit? I mean, what do you think? Obviously, you think 13,000 is possible. What about going north of 13,000? What do you see could be foreseeable from some of the trick skiers, including yourself out there? Because I'm telling you, watching men's trick right now is unbelievable. The scores are just crazy of what it's taken to make a final. What would be in the realm of possibility above 13,000 when you look at it?
I think that there's, as you can see, there's toe passes that are valued that some people are doing of 5,600 points, like very high value. And then there's hand passes like Pato's or mine that are 76. So I think 13, there's much more available or possible above 13K, high 13s, I think so, maybe even 14. But
Wow.
I think that it's going to take more time, and that's going to be a little bit further down the road than where we are right now, another decade or two, possibly, for people to find find the tricks, the technique necessary, or the speed, or
Sure.
as trick skis and ropes, boats develop to be able to trick those higher points.
Very cool. Very cool. We had Erica Lang on the podcast, I think this year, not too long ago, and we were asking her kind of her approach to skiing in big tournaments. Like did she have multiple runs? If she saw somebody go down, would she have a lesser run just to make sure it was a conservative run to make it into the finals? And her answer surprised me. She was like, "Not really. Like what I'm going for in my run is what I'm going for." I wondered how you approach the trick course. Is it different from tournament to tournament, or are you pretty much squared away on the run that you're going into that event with?
I change my runs depending on what I'm feeling that day. I know that I practice a certain way, and that by lessening my run or doing something easy, playing it safe, being careful, I think that you end up overthinking it, and it's better to just go out there and do what you practice. I mean, that's why we train, to be able to go do it. So
Sure.
by like changing our plan and doing something that we didn't practice, I think it adds risk rather than lessens it.
Sure, sure. And with the competitive field right now, it pretty much is kind of go for broke because you could have a stand-up run and still not make the final with all the great trick skiing that's taking place. Now, we've highlighted trick skiing a lot right here on the front end of the episode because you're just having such an incredible year, but that's not the only thing that you do, and you've had an incredible year thus far in three event water skiing. When you went to the Masters this year, obviously you could have skied the Open division in trick, but because the Masters doesn't have an overall title, you elected to ski the Junior Masters so you could slalom, trick, and jump, compete in all three, and also compete into overall. I just wanted to get your take on that decision and how that tournament went, because I think the whole game plan is kind of to speed up and snowball into the junior worlds at the end of the year.
Well, the thing with junior masters and open masters is that you only can ski one of them. And I'm not going to be a junior for many more years. And I figured that I'm going to have some more open masters that I'm going to get to compete in trick. And I wanted to take the opportunity because to trick juniors and be in the overall race with Tim and Tristan and George, who are all great skiers. And being part of the overall race is a longer event. It's not just 40 seconds down and back on the lake.
That's
It's
right.
something that you participate in all day, and it's an event that's nothing. There's nothing like an overall race on Robin Lake with those other competitors.
Awesome, awesome. I remember talking to you and your dad a couple years ago. We were talking about the foundation of trick skiing as being an overall skier, right? Like really knowing, understanding how to trick, and then basically that's the foundation. You develop that first, and then you go learn slalom and jump. And it has been amazing to me in the last couple of years of announcing that event to see just how good and how far you've come in those other two events so quickly. Can you talk to us a little bit about slalom and jump and your progression in the last couple of years in those events?
Sure. I'll start with trick first, though. In trick, I started tricking really very young. Like I think I was 3 or 5 years old when I was starting trick ski, and I didn't really work on runs or anything. I worked on just having fun on my ski, jumping the wakes, and getting to find how to like ride the ski the right ways. And it's simple, but standing on your ski is the most important thing in trick skiing, and that's the same thing for slalom and jump. So once you learn the basics, then I started slaloming young too, at like age 7 or 5, and so I've done those ones for a long time, and slalom was kind of more on the back burner for a while, and since I liked trick much more than slalom, and I still like trick more than slalom, but I'm starting to like it more now, and my slalom has started to improve. I ran like a couple buoys and competed in national events, but not really in international events as much as slalom. And then what was it now? 2 years ago, I started doing 3/4 jumping, but 2 years before that, I really started riding jump skis and doing singles. So I was going like
Wow.
70, I was going like 70, 90 feet for like till 2 years ago. And then I started doing 3/4. I improved 20 feet. And then I improved throughout that fall. And then by the junior worlds in Chile, I went 140 feet
Wow.
in jump. Then I went up in ski size, and by junior masters last year, I had a PB of 157 feet.
Wow.
I
That so like in a span of a couple years, you're going up like 60 feet.
Right. So
Wow.
after with some practice, I think it was 9 months or a year, I went up 60 feet,
Wow.
and, and then I kept I kept jumping throughout the summer, and in September I went up to 5.5. I improved a little bit. Um, then I had an injury in the fall in the world's familiarization
Hmm.
in during jump. I broke my elbow, so my medial epicondyle in my elbow
Hmm.
became disconnected from my elbow and was pulled down by my forearm muscles. So it was offset by about 7 millimeters.
Wow.
And I was unable to ski the world championships in trick, slalom, and jump. But mostly trick was real sad because I'd been training really hard for that event. So I sat there and I got to watch all my friends ski and my sister ski, which was awesome to see. And she just was out of finals. She got like 13th or 14th place.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
but I went home. I got surgery, and now I have a screw in my elbow, which goes through that bone and up the humerus. And so I did PT and recovered till January, and that's when I started skiing again. Um, and then doing gymnastics, strengthening it. And so I came into the season hungry and wanting to train after missing out on that event. So I went to Moomba and I skied really well. I took second in trick, and then I won junior overall and got second in junior jump and third in junior slalom and second in junior trick,
Wow.
which was
Well, yeah, just to highlight once again how 2024 has gone and the scores you've posted, to think you were doing that off of that type of injury, um, that's incredible. I mean, when you were recovering from that kind of injury, could you go out there and do a toe run, or how did you kind of progress into, hey, my elbow's good to go, or it's still a little bit sore? How did that go training it for the season?
so I didn't touch my trick ski from I broke it until I was healed and I got the all clear. So I started by just doing hands and doing some light tricks, jumping around, doing some flips, but not really pushing myself for the first till I felt stronger and I was able to be not. I didn't want to ski and be worried that I was going to hurt it because I didn't want to change my style. So I waited until I felt comfortable to start training for real, and I could do toes, which is what I started doing because it doesn't involve any elbow strength.
Wow.
But anyways, a little off topic. I'll go back to jump and slalom. I've trained a lot this spring for slalom and jump, and then at the LCQs, I got a jump PB of I my PB before going into the season was 163, and then I tied that at Moomba. And then at Jack's in the first LCQ, I went 172 in a jump off with Fran Georgie's. And in the weekend after that, I went 178 both rounds.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump, right? I mean, that's a huge jump. You're coming up on the thresholds of not too many people have gone close to that 180 mark at that age at 5.5, 32. To think your progression into jump literally within a couple years is like 100 feet. That's incredible. And I guess at this point in the season, you've accomplished that going in with the LCQs into Junior Masters, and now you're starting to prepare. And I don't know if there's anything else on the lineup or if Junior Worlds is the target. But what else are you going to be competing in for 3 event this summer?
This summer, I am going to be competing in for 3 event, or I leave for the Monaco Cup or Monaco Pro Am
Okay.
this week to compete next week in Rocket Room but that's just trick. And then after that, I go to Botas Pro Am where I'm doing overall and open trick. And then that takes place like very end of June. And then I come back to the United States on July 1st. And then I'll train before Junior World, which takes place at the end of July.
Okay. Wow. That's going to be an action-packed lineup right there.
A lot of tournaments this summer, but different than most years. There's not going to be many tournaments in the fall. So I will probably be working on new tricks and improving my training to come back stronger next year.
So Junior Worlds is at the end of July. Isn't that typically in the fall, or is that a new schedule where they're putting it earlier in the season?
Well, Junior Worlds really depends, or all World Championships, I think, depend on where they are. This year they're in Canada, in Calgary. So any other time of year, it's pretty cold there, and it has to be at the peak of summer for it to be the warmest conditions.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, let me ask you this. You touched on understanding kind of your schedule, and then you referred to training. When you say the word train, what does a daily day out at the lake look like as far as slalom, trick, and jump? How do you approach that?
Well, it kind of depends what I'm training for. So let's say I have an event in 2 weeks. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go and work on my trick runs. I'm going to make sure everything feels good. I'm going to do a hand set I'll do toes and hands. So I'll probably do 15 minutes of toes, and then I'll do probably 20 minutes of hands. So it's like a 35-minute set. And then for slalom and jump, I'll probably take 6 or 8 passes of slalom and 6 jumps. But for let's say there's no tournament in the foreseeable future, my trick sets may be from an hour to an hour and a half.
Wow.
And slalom will be about the same as 6 to 8 passes. And then jump, I could go do I'll do some cuts and passes. I'll do some singles. I'll do some jumps. So it could be 8 or more, depending on how long my feet last in my bindings.
Now, along the way, I guess let's just rewind like 3 years ago when you were trying to get the skill that you are right now. Would you ski more times, or for let's take trick for example, would you take more time at tricks when you'd go out and take a set? Would it be an hour set or 3 hour sets, or how did you do that when you're really trying to build into the professional category that you're in? I mean, you're a professional water skier already. I mean, how did you approach that? How did you train?
When I was younger, like during the summer, during the school year, I had school and I can't ski for as long after school and between gymnastics practice. But in the summer, I would take sets that are up from 2 to 3 hours, just riding my ski and trying new things to try and find every way that my ski turns and learning as much as I can every set. So I ski for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, trying to just improve as fast as I could. But it's not with intentions to improve, just to have fun. And like how somebody would go, oh, I want to go mountain bike or do something. I want to go have some fun. I want to go tubing. That's kind of how trick skiing is for me, just to go out there, have fun on my ski, play on the water, a lake day.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, let's talk about coaches. Obviously, you ski with your dad. I know that you've been trained by Camilo and Jimmy Seamers. Talk to us a little bit about that because those are some, I mean, of the best coaches that you could possibly have. Those are right up on the list. Talk to us about your coaches.
So most of the time I ski with my dad, which is in during the school year, and he'll pull me after school, and I train in the mornings, in the afternoons, weekends. But Jimmy, a couple or many weekends a year, will fly out to Arizona, and he'll train me for about like for 4 days, and we'll train hard, and then he'll go back to Texas, and that really helps to get. He really helps with jump and trick, slalom, and and then with Camilo, I'll usually come to Florida and train with him, and I'll train for like 2 weeks or a week or a month and train with him and train like 4, 5, 7 days in a row,
Yeah.
and then take a day off and then train as much as train until I get sore again, and then I train as much as I possibly can to improve.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's amazing to see that lineup of coaches that you have, and it's interesting when you talk about Jimmy. You know, Jimmy, when I was coming up through the junior ranks, he was a little bit older than I was, only by a couple years, but we saw him, you know, he was one of the first skiers in a long time that was able, as a junior, to become a professional. Like there was no transition into that. It just happened and he could go into that category. It's almost when I think of Jimmy and I'm looking at you right here in 2024, I'm like, wow, he holds the world record. I mean, we have to really go back to folks like Jimmy and again bringing up Corey's name of world record holders that would hold the record as what we would categorize as a junior. So that's certainly some rare air there that you're a part of. You got to be proud of that.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be able to be mentioned next to Jimmy. He was such a great skier and still is a great skier.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's like you're already like competing against the Hall of Famers that punch their ticket into the Hall of Fame. Um, wanted to talk to you about good. A lot of innovations when it has come to the trick ski, and you were talking about this a little bit. And I know on the podcast we have spent a ton of time talking about innovations when it comes to slalom. You know, there's a lot to talk about, whether it's the material, the ski shape, the fin setting, what bindings you use, and all those types of things. But when you look at a trick ski and the ways that it can be shaped and innovative, what's kind of the things that are working that maybe we didn't know 10 years ago, let's say, when trick skis were being built?
So some things have changed, but if you look at like skis that were ridden by Corey and Patrice a long time ago, they were all made by hand. They were mostly made by hand, and they were using rubber bindings, while today we use hard shells. But something special about the good trick ski that I ride, which was designed by Jimmy and my dad. It uses the carbon core technology that good has, making it lighter and a lot more lightweight than other brands on the market. But it also has sharper edges to be able to make quicker reactions to the lake, and it has more carvability because of the football shape and the ends. As you can see, it has points that make it more like a surfboard, so you can carve and manipulate the lake more precisely.
Very cool. Yeah, going back to the edges on a trick ski, where back in the day, and I don't know on a hand ski or a toe ski, or if you use the same ski, um, do you use a rubber edge anymore on a toe ski, or is that kind of
I think people still use rubber edges on toe skis, and I used the rubber edge until a couple years ago when I switched to the MK1.
okay? Okay,
And but I like the good skis because they're lighter, and that allows me to not have to deal with as much swing weight. So it's more about my feet and not as much about something that a weight that I'm throwing around my feet.
absolutely. And it's interesting because the variables and tricks, not only is the ski important, the binding was important. I remember the first time I had the opportunity to ski with Camilo, that's when I went to a hard shell binding, and that like changed my life on a trick ski. Made
Yeah,
it so much better, right?
yeah, it makes a huge difference as well. Like not only just being lighter on the ski and having more control, but also not having to take breaks every 10 or 15 minutes to rest
Sure.
your foot. Because you could use a rubber binding that was loose and ski for as long as you want, but then you wouldn't be able to control the ski one too the way you
I,
want it to. So you'd have to be tight and you'd have to take breaks. While with the rubber or while with the hard shell, you can unclip the buckles, and it's just not as tight.
sure, sure. And the other factors that, a slalom skier, for example, wouldn't really think about is when you're trying to break a world record, and I feel like I've had this conversation with Jimmy or Camilo in the past, the amount of time you spend in the air on flips is kind of crucial. I mean, it's not a wakeboard event in which we want to go as big as possible because that's just wasting time in the 20 seconds. So, how you balance the wakes, how you think through how big the wakes need to be. Talk to us a little bit about that process because I know that's important to the efficiency of a hand run to break a world record.
Yeah, I mean, the size of the wakes make a big difference. But if the wakes are super small, it's hard to go fast because you have to do all the work yourself, and that takes time. If the wakes are too big, that the wakes do a lot and they'll kick you wide, bring you too high, and it takes a really long time to complete your runs. So there's like a happy medium where you can do your runs, and that it changes for different people. For I like slightly smaller wakes, so I use 0% ballast.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but I know people that use 25%, 50%, but it just depends on how fast you want to get your runs done and what works for your style of skiing. But the thing about flips is that the time in the air is pretty similar if you go big or small. It's really the time on the water afterward and before
Ah,
that is what takes up most. Like I can do if I do a big front flip, but I land right next to the wake and be able to take off for my second one right away, it's not a big deal. But if I do a big front flip and I land next to the white water on the outskirts of 15 feet from the wake, it'll take me another second to get back
sure.
and it'll slow down my run big time.
Sure, sure. That's an interesting point. That traveling laterally is really the time waster and trying not and that's the difficulty too. It's this balance. You don't want to be too wide. You get too close on top of the wake, you don't have enough edge to go into your next flip. And so finding that happy medium, I don't know, I used to call it like the trough area where it converges at the bottom. Where are you trying to aim your flips? Because it's always interesting to watch where certain people land, and it's almost like they're edging back into the wake. Where is that kind of sweet spot where you're trying to finish the flip?
So on my front flips, I try to land into the trough or like at the bottom of the wake next to me. So then I can land and turn and then go right away. But while on like mo back to backs, which I start my run with, I try and land about halfway down the wake,
Okay,
not too close to the top where I can case it, but not all the way at the bottom where I lose time. I land about halfway down, and then where I can come down the bottom of the wave, carve, and come back up the wave for my next one.
sure.
Same thing with my back landing, and then the difference with the or front flip front that I do for my last flip is that I take that one a little bit wider so I can set up for my ski lines in the right place.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really thought of that or asking that question, but if you're learning a flip, you're just trying to land it. And then there's learning the flip, being consistent with the flip, and then I think what you're alluding to, the next step is the consistency on where you're actually landing to go put it in a run to be consistently letting the pass flow through. How much time did you spend over the years, let's say on Mo back to back, trying to consistently land where you wanted to land? Was that like, did you have to take multiple sets to try to figure that out, or how was that progress?
I mean, I take a bunch of sets, always trying to figure out where I want the start of my run, because the start's like the most important part. Once you're near the end, it kind of like you can figure out and you can problem solve to get to there. But at the start, I mean, it determines what direction your run's going to go. So by finding the right start, you can set your run to have the right rhythm, the right timing, the pace that you want. So I'll go out for sets and just do mode back to back reverse over and over and over again,
Okay.
finding the one I want consistently, starting at the same place at for my reverse back into my takeoff, finding the cut, finding the feeling of the rope tension on the bottom of the wave, and carving back up and having the right height that I want, and then finding the reverse back and the setup for the next flip.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, Jake, this seems like a crazy question because you're so young, but what are your future goals? I mean, you got decades ahead of you. Obviously, you're the current world trick record holder. You broke your world record already this year. You got the world championships, the junior world championships, and then probably I would say, and this is just me assuming after that tournament this year is kind of making the transition to being a professional water skier. Is that the next move, or what's in the future?
Of course, one of my goals is tricking 13, and that's a
Okay.
really big goal of mine is to push myself to be the best trick skier I can be. Um, but I also want to continue to push my overall
Okay.
abilities and try and be the best jumper and slalomer that I can be. Um, as far as tricking goes, I want to try and learn new tricks and get faster and better and just continue not to slow down now because I'm ahead, because I want to be the best I can be. So I'm going to continue to push myself and see how good I can get.
Sounds good. It sounds
Uh,
like Joel Poland and Dorian Llewellyn need to watch out.
they're older than me and they have quite the head start, but I hope to be as good an overall skier as they are one day, and how good they are at slalom, trick, and jump, all three, running 39 and Joel running 41, jumping 230 feet, and tricking 12,000 points. I mean, it's pretty crazy how they've reached all three of the best in all three disciplines, which is the goal I want to achieve one day.
Sounds
Um,
good. Well, I would say this: you're definitely on pace to do that. Not to leave out Louis Duplan Freeborg in that too. So once you get up there and overall, this is going to be something to watch.
and there's many other people coming up in overall who have this great potential. But my goal is to keep water skiing a hobby. It's not as much it's or my sport. I'm not looking for it to be my job because I want it to be fun. So I'm planning on going to school, and I'm gonna attend. I'm not sure what college I'm going to or exactly what I'm gonna study, but I'm gonna it, water skiing isn't going to be my job. It's going to be I'm going to try and go educational and achieve something outside of water skiing.
Well, sounds good. Well, I got to put in a plug for Louisiana Monroe. If you want to go there, I can get you a phone call on the recruiting process and the trail there. I'm sure your options are unlimited in the ski world, and we're really excited that you're skiing for Team USA and you're out there skiing as well as you possibly can. I just wanted to give you a moment this time if you wanted to thank anybody or any of your sponsors.
Uh, I'd really like to thank Good, but and also my coaches, Jimmy and Camilo, and my dad for helping me to get where I am. Um, I couldn't have done it without them, and without Good Skis making the consistent and products and skis that I use to be able to do what I do.
Well, that sounds great, Jake, and we're super excited to see how 2024 finishes for you. We'll be cheering for you. That is your world trick record holder, Jake Abelson. Jake, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Tyler.
Signing off.